Hello and welcome. Happy KateMas. I'm so happy to have you here today. If you're new around here, hello and welcome. My name is Katie Marie and we are, I think, about 10 days into KateMas if my calculations and pre-scheduling is correct, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite parts of makeup, eyeshadow palettes, but it's made even sweeter because today is a collab with a friend of mine here on YouTube. Today I'm collaborating on this video idea with my friend Brit Clarke. If you are new to Brit Clarke's channel, I am so very happy to be introducing you to her. She is the queen of live streams. If you guys enjoy kind of live videos where you're able to interact and talk with the YouTuber in real time, then you're gonna love her channel. Whenever I'm able to catch her live, it's just so much fun getting to talk to her in person and just have that little bit extra connection. But anyway, Brit Clarke, she is a YouTuber. She delves a lot into luxury makeup, so like Tom Ford, I know she does, you know, Wayne Goss, Kevin Aquan, so all of those really fancy Chantecaille, those type of products. If you are mildly interested in them, definitely recommend checking out her channel because she really does enjoy trying out those products and seeing if they are as luxurious and give her that luxurious experience as the price tag would warrant, because some of those products are so expensive. And she is just so much fun. Her personality is just so upbeat and happy, and I just end up, anytime I click over to her videos, I end up smiling throughout, and I end up like leaving her videos in such a great mood and just so happy, honestly. Like, her personality just kind of comes through on camera and you can't help but smile as you chit chat with her. So I highly recommend her channel, and we are collaborating on this video today where we are sharing our winter palette collection. Now, we're being very loose with it. I told her, like, if you want to do winter or if you want to do more Christmas, whatever is your winter, that's what we're going to do. And the main idea behind doing this video is because I did a fall palette collection, and I'll leave that video linked up here if you want to see it, but I shared all the palettes that in my opinion are in my collection, and they just scream fall to me, and I just love using them in the fall. I had a lot of palettes, so if you want a lot of palettes, you want to hear me talk about a lot of palettes, check out that video. But anyway, following up with that, I also want to do a winter palette collection and just share all of the palettes that I have in my collection that, in my opinion, just make me think of fall whenever I look at the palette or whenever I do a look from it. And I have a couple. I feel like I didn't even count them, but definitely less than my fall palettes, so I don't have as many winter palettes, but I have a handful to talk about. So why don't we just jump right in and start talking about my fall palette collection. Alright, so we're going to start with the ones that, in my opinion, scream it the loudest and just are the most obvious, like the first ones off the top of my head, and then we'll work our way all the way down to the ones that maybe not so obvious but still make me think of winter. So that's kind of how I just decided to do it. So let's first start with the very first palette that anytime I see this palette, I think of winter. And for the very first palette, I want to kick off with a palette that is totally themed around winter. It's called the Peppermint Mocha palette from Ruby May Cosmetics, and like, come on, this inside, I haven't done any looks with it, as I said, but this inside just screams winter to me. You have the really bright red in there, you have those darker greens in there, you just have a perfect mix of winter, Christmas, winter, all combined. And this palette right here, I haven't tried any looks with it yet. I think I've already said that like 3 times. I'm so sorry. I have a hair stuck to my lip gloss. Ugh, but I'm so excited to try it because I feel like every look that I get with this palette will make me think of winter, and I just think it'll be so much fun. This red looks so very bright. I feel like it'll just look so pretty if you pair it with these greens on the outer corner or the silver. The silver looks beautiful. I love silver for winter and whatnot, so this palette kind of kicks it off. It's all themed around winter, so therefore I feel like it should be spoken of first because it's such a winter themed palette, and I cannot wait to get into it. And yeah, it's just the perfect winter palette. It's now in my collection, and I can't wait to do some looks. I'm definitely going to be using this in December because it's just so appropriate. Gotta use it in the winter. Next up, another palette that is holiday themed, and in my opinion, the inside is also holiday themed. It is DJ's Unique Boutique, The Reasons. Now, at the time of me filming this, I know she does have some still left, but I do know she is not restocking this, so I don't know when I put this up if this will be available anymore, but if it is, I highly recommend it. It is such a good palette, and this is such a fun color story. This is the most unique, I would say, when it comes to winter because it's not those Christmas colors. However, when we kind of put Christmas to the side for a minute and think about winter, this is a very winter themed palette for me because it has those rich blues in there, those really deep tones over here that are just so beautiful. This royal blue purple shade right here, the shimmer, beautiful. I absolutely love it. And then the greens paired with it are so very beautiful. So yeah, definitely more of a unique color story when it comes to winter, but I still totally agree that it is a winter themed palette, and I absolutely loved it. All the looks that I was getting with this palette, I just kept thinking of like, oh, this is such a rich yet still vibrant and colorful winter palette. I absolutely love it. So yeah, DJ's Unique Boutique, she hit it out of the park with this palette. It was my very first try from the brand, but she nailed it. She nailed a good formula that's very easy to work with, and the color story, like, come on, this color story was just so beautiful and fun. So yeah, I had to make it into my winter palette collection. Okay, so another palette that I thought of, like every time I did a look with this, I just thought of winter. It made me think of those just cold, crisp days. And it is the Midas Cosmetics Smoky Glow palette. This came out after Valentine's Day. I don't even remember. Whenever it came out, I did a couple looks. I'll leave them up here. I did a review looks. I did eye swatches, that sort of thing. But every time I did a look with this palette, I kept thinking about winter because there's just so much in this palette that gives that depth and that richness when it comes to those colors, but still has really light colors that just pop, and almost like there's no silver in here, but this shade is just so blinding and beautiful. It is gorgeous. And I went back and looked at my 3 Looks 1 palette with this palette, and yeah, it just makes me think of winter, especially I think the first shade I did when I used Dofa and Nutty. So rich, so royal, and I know, you know, when you look at this, you might be like, oh, it's just a reddish themed palette. It still gives me those very winter vibes. And for me personally, this is just a color story. When I was doing looks with it, I just kept thinking of winter. So I had to include this. I know, I feel like a lot of people are going to be like, oh, that's not a winter palette because there's no green. I think winter can be expanded beyond just the Christmas colors. And so that's why I'm including this, because even back whenever this was launched in March, I forget when this was launched, March, April, whatever. Whenever this was launched, I kept doing so many looks. And even now when I go back and see a video where I was wearing one of these looks, I'm like, ooh, that just makes me think of the winter. So had to include it. Okay, let's talk about some Juvia's Place palettes. The first one that I thought of for winter is the Warrior 3 by Juvia's Place, because this palette has got it when it comes to those rich tones, and it has those kind of reddish tones with the green, and then it has the silver in there. Ooh, so beautiful. You can definitely get lighter tones with this, but overall, when I look at this palette, each of the colors are so saturated and has so much depth to it that I feel like for the most part, I just kept thinking of Christmas, and I thought it was very pretty, and I just love the depth that you can get with this. And I think that's what really makes me think of winter whenever I would do a look with this, and I'd really focus on just the richness of these tones. I would think of winter, so wanted to make sure I include the Warrior 3 palette. Okay, this next one I definitely thought of as soon as I opened it as a winter palette, but this is the Supreme Chaos by Prism Makeup. I don't even know if Prism Makeup is a thing anymore, like a brand. I haven't heard anything from them in forever. However, this palette right here is like a really colorful winter palette to me. There's a lot of depth in here with, you know, these shades over here, and even the shimmer shades. There's a lot of depth with the shimmers that can give you a very deep and kind of smoky eye look that I like to wear in the winter, but there's also pops of color as well to really make it a colorful winter palette, in my opinion. I remember doing so many looks with this and really thinking like, oh, this would be fun to wear in the winter. Like, oh, I could see me wearing this in the winter. It really makes me think of winter. Those cold days when you need a jacket and you're just shivering out there in the cold and you just have a really smoky, colorful, but deep eye look. That's what I kept thinking of when I used this palette. As I said, I don't know if Prism Makeup is a thing anymore, so I don't even know if you can get this anymore. I don't exactly remember how it was to work with this formula, because I want to say this was like beginning of 2018 when I tried this. However, I have good memories from it, and I remember creating a lot of eye looks that I liked. But check out my video. I know I've reviewed this on my channel, so check that video out to see what I thought about the formula. But I have happy thoughts of this, and as I said, whenever I see it, whenever I see a look I did with it, I just think of winter. Okay, I feel like I couldn't do a winter themed palette collection video without mentioning this palette from Too Faced. It's the Gingerbread Spice palette. They came out with a Gingerbread Extra Spicy, which to me personally, not owning it, just looked like a watered down version of this. But I did pick this up when it launched. What was it, last year before last? Anyway, this palette definitely makes me think of winter. It makes me think of like Christmas cookies, you know, gingerbread, duh, Katie. Anyway, it makes me think of Christmas and cooking and baking, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So for me, this is really very much a winter themed palette because it just makes me think of cold winter nights, because it has those warm tones in there that you think of when it comes to like gingerbreads and whatnot, but it has those more icy tones in there, and it does give you that depth, especially with the shimmers. Again, I feel like winter is that time where I enjoy a really dark shimmer because I feel like it just gives to the whole winter vibe, so I don't mind those really dark shimmers as much. And this palette has a few of them down here, but still pops of colors, still those really icy tones up there to really pair together and make a beautiful look. So had to give it to Too Faced. They come out with a lot of palettes that I'm not down to too much these days. However, this one I was totally down for, and I still like it for that winter theme. Alright, moving right along, I have a little quad to talk about. This is the Wet n Wild House of Thorns little quad here. It's so dark you can't even see. But here, ooh, a little bit of the red just fell on my carpet. That's fantastic. Anyway, this little palette right here, it has a really dark red, a black, a really dark green shimmer, and then a bronzy, much more of like a deep shimmer. This quad right here, I can't say I would love it by itself. I did create one look. It was a first impressions. I'll leave it linked up here. That is like the one look I feel like you could go to. And not to say that I didn't like that look. I thought that look was very pretty, but for me, I feel like this is a great companion palette to create more looks just because it's a little bit limiting because it's just so dark. But that aside, this is definitely a palette that makes me think of winter. It's got the dark green. It's got the really dark red. it has those deeper tones, and just every look you do, especially if you're just using this palette, it's just going to come out with so much depth and richness. It makes me think of winter. So I saw this palette in my collection. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that palette. I remember thinking even at the time, like, oh, this is such a deep dark look, like winter. It just made me think of winter. So I had to include it in this video, and yeah, it's just a cute little palette. Like I said, great companion palette if you're someone who has a lot of neutral mid-tone palettes but you're wanting to get something to really deepen it up. This will be a great palette to grab because it's affordable, being Wet n Wild, and it's got 4 very dark tones to really add to a lighter tone palette. But I don't even know if you can get this anymore, but I do like it for the companion aspect, so I wanted to include it in today's video. I need to stop saying winter because people, it gets old. Okay, next palette that made me think of winter was the Lancome Starlight Sparkle Shadow Palette. This palette right here, ooh, it's just such a pretty palette. This is much more of a neutral winter palette, but I remember doing a couple looks with this palette that when I did them, I was just like, oh, makes me think of the winter. It's just got so much richness and so much depth. And even, what was it, the shade? I think my favorite look that I did was with this purple with all of these deeper tones, and I recorded a video for Ulta. I'll leave it linked up here if you want to go watch it, but I remember talking about Ulta's ultimate reward systems, and every time I see that video and I click on it, the eye look turned out so beautiful. It still had a lot of depthness, but with this purple, it had a lot of brightness as well, and I just thought it was very pretty. And every time I look at this palette, I think about a very neutral, very, not super like deep, not super, you know, Christmassy, not super colorful, but it's a nice palette that makes me think of winter. And there are so many eye looks I did, like I said, that made me think of the winter time. And yeah, if you go, you know, with these shades up here, I feel like it's not really that much different than a lot of palettes, but I feel like paired with these tones down here, especially because this palette is so full of such dark shimmers. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shimmers down here that are dark. There's also those 2 up there, but you know, for the deeper tones, I feel like when a palette has a lot of very dark shimmers, I end up doing very smoky eye looks that just make me think of winter. And it's got a green in here, it's got like this teal blue down here. It just makes me think of winter. So this is a palette that maybe not the traditional type of winter, definitely not a Christmas palette, but the looks that I get with it make me think of winter, so I put it in my winter palette collection. Okay, another type of palette that really makes me think of the winter is cool tones. The cool tone palette, and especially when it's cool tone with the depth. With those two combined, cool tones especially, maybe just because winter is more of that cool color, but it always makes me think of winter. So this palette right here, which is the Marble Collection Cold Stone palette from BH Cosmetics, a very old palette. I don't remember thinking the quality was that amazing. However, this color story definitely makes me think of winter. It's got the grays in here. It has those white toned silver shimmers over here, but it also has some color in the middle, and it has some deeper colors with the purple and whatnot, and then the blue. It definitely makes me think of winter, maybe more so like January, February winter, but it's still winter in my eyes. And it also has a really dark shimmer as well. I haven't touched this palette in so very long. Like I said, I don't remember being crazy about the formula, but just looking at it kind of makes me want to bring it back out and see what this palette is made of, because ooh, that's actually really pretty. I love a good silver. When it comes to wintertime, I think good silvers are just so beautiful, can make such a pretty icy look. I feel like this palette would make a beautiful icy winter look. So yeah, had to give it to this palette. It's been so long. Cold Stone Marble Collection. But yeah, it just made me think of winter when I opened it. I was like, oh, I have to include this palette. Okay, another palette from Juvia's Place. This is the Magic Mini Palette right here. This was gifted me by Crystal. Thank you so much. Every time I see it, I think about you. But this palette also does make me think of Christmas. Maybe not solely Christmas, but winter in general. But there are those tones where I could get a look in here that would make me think of Christmas, especially with this green in here and with this reddish tone over here and these really deep royal mattes on either end to deepen it up. I just feel like it would turn into a very Christmassy eye look. But Christmas aside, it has those deep dark shimmers that I feel like you can create such a smoky, very deep and rich and royal type of eye look that would make me think of winter, but you still have these lighter tones to really make a color pop. It has this really pretty like dirty gold that I absolutely love. Maybe not exactly winter, but I like those shades. Anyway, moving on. There's a lot in this palette, especially the bottom half I feel like is where it's strongest. The bottom half with the red makes me think of winter, so I had to include this one. Maybe not the strongest winter palette, but when I looked in it, I definitely thought of winter for that bottom half, as I said, so I wanted to include it in today's video. Alright, we are almost done. The next palette that made me think about winter was the Dominique Cosmetics Celestial Thunder palette. This is a part of a bigger palette. I forget what the big palette looks like, but this one specifically we got in a BoxyCharm, and I remember I did 3 looks and a review. I'll leave it linked up here, or if that's full, I'll put it down in the description box, but I remember doing a couple looks that I just thought winter, like it made me think about those winter months, those very icy tone months, mainly because it has a really dark shimmer in here, but it has this really pretty pop of color that has a lot of depth to it, and that has this icy kind of topper shade. I did a look where I think this this was mostly on the lid and then this was kind of smoked out. I forget, but that look, whichever one used this on the lid, made me think of winter so much. It was just had so much depth and iciness to it. I thought it was beautiful. So this palette as a whole, yeah, maybe not every look that you did with this would scream winter, because I feel like you could do a pretty neutral palette with those three. However, as a whole, I feel like will give you some very, very winter appropriate, very cold. I need to think of a different word besides winter, because you guys are probably sick of it by now. Cool toned weather appropriate makeup looks? I don't know. It just made me think of those cold weather months, and I wanted to include it in today's video. Okay, the last two are probably my biggest stretch when it comes to winter. However, I do want to include them because they still make me think of winter. This next one is going to be a very colorful winter, but this is the Blush Tribe palette with Paulina. Blush Tribe is no more, so you can't get this palette anymore. It was limited edition, but anyway, they did in collaboration with YouTuber Paulina. I really enjoy her channel. Check her out. But this palette makes me think of winter because it has those very Christmas tones up here, and then it has the deep purples here that pair together. Yes, maybe not the traditional winter colors, maybe not the traditional Christmas colors. However, for me personally, when I would do looks with this, it would be so rich and so fun yet colorful, but it still gave me that depth that it made me think of winter. And I think these colors right here especially, yeah, they're not really winter colors, but they're that Christmas tree color that I always, at least that's why I always associate that tone of green. It makes me think of a Christmas tree, so that paired with those deeper purples make me think of the winter time. So I wanted to include this as like a colorful option to a winter palette. You guys can let me know what you think. But yeah, anytime I look at this, maybe it was because I think I tried it at the beginning of the year, like January. I remember it being cold, so I had like a scarf on a lot when I would wear this. I'm vaguely remembering the pictures I took when I created looks with this palette, and I think it was cold out. I can't remember, but for some reason, whenever I think about the looks that I did, whenever I think about, you know, this palette as a whole, I just think about the winter. And last up, this is the Milani, what's it called? Gilded Jade. This is a green theme palette. However, something about this, and maybe it's because I used it last year during the winter and I did a lot of looks around Christmas time, but the greens in here make me think of winter. I don't know, I could be very much alone here. And like I said, I try to get mostly where the whole palette was themed winter, so this one might be the weakest link to my palette, my winter palette collection. However, I want to include it because these greens really are beautiful, and paired with these other shades, especially this pop of green, like a bright lime green, ugh, I love it. But this shade right here, Lagoon, really is what kind of sold it to me when I was thinking about this palette. Pairing that with this deep green, like I feel like it gave such a deep look. I don't think I ever did a 3 looks 1 palette with this palette. However, you know, pairing those two together with one of the lighter shades out here, you know, smoking it out in the crease, and then this bright green, or even this green for the inner corner, it was just such a beautiful, deep, very green, and in my eyes, more winter look. So that's why I wanted to include it. You still got those pops to make it, you know, blend it out, make it a little bit more light and airy or whatnot, but that really dark green shimmer I thought was beautiful, and when I did a look kind of centered around that with the other, you know, dark green to blend it out the outer corner and the other greens to kind of lighten it up in the crease, I thought of winter, so I wanted to include this palette in my winter palette collection. Oh, and also, let me just go ahead, this Aura shade is so pretty. I haven't used this probably since last year when I reviewed it, but it is beautiful. Let me show you guys. I don't even know. Yeah, I think you guys can see how shiny that is. And I know it doesn't come across on camera, but it has the most gorgeous, beautiful, and still flattering green shift to this shadow. It's a highlighter, but you can also use it all over your, you know, eye look as well. But yeah, it's just so beautiful, so pretty. I really enjoy that look. But yeah, that is going to be the final palette in my winter palette collection. Alright, so those are all the palettes. You'll have to tell me what you think. As I said, a couple of palettes I feel like were a little weak when it comes to a winter palette, you know, like the last one that I talked about. But overall, I feel like there's just so many aspects in these palettes that, if not all of the palette, at least the vast majority of the palette makes me think of winter, makes me think of those cold months, or makes me think of Christmas, that I wanted to include them in my winter palette collection. But yeah, I cannot wait to hear what you guys think. Let me know if there's a palette in your collection that anytime you look at it, anytime you do a look with it, you just think of winter, you think of those cold months, those icy months, maybe you think of Christmas. Let me know that down below in the comments. I would love to hear that. And yeah, Britt, thank you so much for collaborating with me on this video idea. Thank you for finally reaching out and being like, hey, we should collab on a video. I've been meaning to collaborate with you for a while. I'm the worst at reaching out and, you know, getting video ideas going because I feel like I don't have a fun, unique video idea. And so I stop and try to think of one, and then I never reach out. But thank you so much, Britt, for finally reaching out and being like, hello, we should collab. And I had a lot of fun doing this video with you. Make sure you guys go over and check out Britt and see which palette she picks for her winter themed palette. So I'm really curious to see which one she she picks, but make sure you go over there and check her out. And if you're coming over from Brit's channel, thank you so very much for checking out my channel. I'm sorry I'm saying thank you at the end. I always try to say at the beginning and I never remember, but thank you so very much, and I hope you did enjoy this video. And if you did, I'd love for you to stick around if you'd like to. We're doing KateMas over here, videos every single day in December, and I'm also running a giveaway. Don't think I said that in the beginning, so if you want to enter to win one of 2 makeup boxes, I'll have the link in the description box if you want to check that video out and see how to enter. But yeah, with all that said, that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you very soon in my next video tomorrow. Bye guys.